Vice President Kamala Harris did something she has never done before. As a candidate for the highest office in the land, Harris was forced to answer tough questions. It was her first ever Fox News interview with Bret Baier.
Still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender.
I will follow the law, and it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed. You're probably familiar with, now it's a public report, that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender transition surgeries happened during his presidency.
Well, you know what? You got to take responsible for what happened in your administration.
I mean, Rachel, it is stunning that we are less than 3 weeks from an election, and she had yet to be asked about Biden's mental competence and what she knew, along with so many other questions.
Absolutely. I think Bret Baier did a fantastic job. Medical necessity for trans surgeries paid by the taxpayer, it's just unbelievable. Every time she gets up, it's funny, she wants to be the executive, and what you get from her is she doesn't want to make decisions. She's very indecisive. And I think in this interview, what you see is somebody who's just skated through life on cliff notes is what I get from her.
Yeah, that's right. Jocelyn Ngari, a sweet little girl who was walking to a convenience store and lost her life to an illegal immigrant. Her death was directly attributable to public policy, Ainsley. Yep. Directly.
Yes.
If the laws had been different and the killer did not cross the border during Biden-Harris, she would still be alive. It's rare you get an opportunity to confront your leader, but Bret Baier gave Jocelyn Ngari's mom that opportunity. Let's watch.
I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early days. So do you owe them an apology is what I'm saying.
I will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I am so sorry for her loss. Sincerely. But let's talk about what is happening right now with an individual who does not want to participate in solutions. Let's talk about that as well.
Okay, let's talk about that. That person's name is Kamala Harris. On day one, they did away with Remain in Mexico. That would have meant if you're an asylum seeker, you have to remain in Mexico. You stay down there. You're not allowed in our country. They did away with it. So the floodgates open up. She also did away with the wall. No more building the wall. All those materials are still down there rusting, right? She also said the border was secure. Why don't you tell that to Laken Riley's mom or Jocelyn Ngari's mom or Rachel Morin's mom? And we interviewed Rachel's mom this morning, and she said she blames this administration. All of their policies allowed these individuals to come in, and then she's now blaming it on Trump for not passing a border bill this year. She's been in office for 3.5 years.
Yeah, that's so true. And I just feel the pain of that mother coming through that soundbite. Joey, another question she was asked was about Biden's mental competence, what she knew and when she knew it. Watch.
When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
The problem is the American people have watched too, and they have a different conclusion.
Yeah, I'll say in the last week, Joe Biden's looked more presidential than he has in a long time, just going down to Florida or looking at the hurricane response. That's the most presidential thing he's done maybe in the last few years, and she's never done that or anything like it. I'll tell you this. First of all, Fox News needs to take a victory lap. And I say as a contributor, not an employee of Fox News, just someone who gets to come on here and give opinions, because if Donald Trump were sitting in that seat, Bret Baier would have asked just as pointed of questions and just as many follow-ups. If you go back to the very first interview that she and Waltz did together, the biggest complaint I had was some of the questions were okay, but there were no follow-ups. There were no, but explain that. And then you hear, and we may talk about this later in the segment, you hear about how they squeezed the time on both ends, tried to rush Bret, or at least that's what we're hearing. And they're doing that hoping that he'll, rather than having follow-ups on one issue, just skim through a bunch of them, give her a chance to give her campaign talking point and be done. He didn't do that. So I watched that in awe of his ability to stick with an issue like the border, which lasted the entire first part of the interview, because it matters and because a no answer is not an answer.
Yeah.
A non-answer isn't an answer, and that's one of them right there. Probably not quite as much of an issue as the border and the economy and other things, but this idea that Joe Biden isn't running for president for a reason, and that reason isn't because she was a better choice or a better leader. It was because nobody was going to spend money on him, and everyone who was saying he's not with it anymore. And the fact she can't answer to that non-answer actually is an answer.
Kara, and just to compare, I mean, as someone who was on Trump's press team, Bret Baier said there were like 4 people rapping. She showed up late. I had the opposite experience with Trump. He'd show up on time and you'd be like, come on, Trump, like, you want to go an hour? We don't have an hour. You have a national security meeting. You'd try to wrap him and he didn't like that. He wanted to continue with the most hostile, adversarial, unfair, unlike Bret, who asked fair questions, unfair journalist.
Oh, yeah. And here's the rub. So when you're having these interviews, when you're going up to on the debate stage as a presidential candidate, you are trying to make your case to the American people as to why you belong in the Oval Office. What we saw in that interview was Kamala Harris effectively just trying to get it over with, right? Trying to get that talking point, trying to get that soundbite, but trying really to just get through the next 19 days without giving any dense, substantive, policy-oriented answers. You know, I thought Dana Perino said it best when she was like, her answers were very thin. You know, she has really nothing to say other than Trump bad, Orange Man bad. And that's not enough. That is not enough to put you in the Oval Office, Kamala.
Wait. But there is one man who thinks it is just enough, and let's roll him, Brian Stelter. We have 10 seconds for this.
Instead of getting to debate Trump again, she got to debate Bret Baier. And a lot of us are going to come away saying, wow, she's willing to do that. That's a sign of toughness and strength.
Yeah, so I'll leave you with that and let the American people decide.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.